evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink. .3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture, joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello. We're not alone.
We are not alone. Not today, no. We are doing a review of this incredible season that we had in 2024. And just like last year, we're going to bring in the cast and crew that makes the magic happen here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And today we are joined by two of the kings of the Mahoning, the great Dave Wirt, King of the Gate. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
And of course, you know him, you love him, projectionist extraordinaire, projection manager, Robert. Say hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
Yes, so excited just to talk to you guys. Like, it's only been maybe 2 weeks since the season's been over, but it's painful. Like, it just, the idea of going from an ultra social lifestyle to back to your regular lifestyle, it's just very jarring. It really is. I don't know how it's been for you guys, but
it's been the same as my normal life, except I don't go to Pennsylvania on the weekends now.
Yeah.
I find myself not sure what to do with a Saturday night. You know, I'm kind of lost here.
Oh, totally. You know, it's like spinning in circles. And I really do just miss the camaraderie in general, you know, for all of us. A lot of times the movies become secondary, which you guys will hear on this podcast as we cover some of our favorite moments, things like that. But it's really just seeing you guys and having the laughs and getting everybody together every weekend. It's just so hyper social and ultra communal, and that's, I think, why we all love it. But as we're talking about this season and highlights of this season, we're like, how are we going to cover everything in an organized manner? So I think maybe the way to do it is maybe to first ask you guys what your personal favorite shows were of the season and maybe favorite moments. And then we kind of go through the calendar or highlight months and chunks of the calendar and go over anything that might pop up naturally.
That sounds great. I'm just furiously looking for a list of all of this season's shows because, as I was saying to Dave before we started recording, we do so many shows over the course of a year. We show so many movies, and so much happens every single night that we're open. It's like each night erases the memory of the night before and replaces it with whatever has just happened. So to reach back through, I'm sure each of us have 200 stories, amazing stories at that, of the 2024 season, but I'm racking my brain to figure out what we even played other than Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka. Right?
We actually did 62 shows during the 2024 season, not counting Patreon events. So 62 separate events.
Amazing.
That doesn't count the shows that were like 3-night event kind of thing. So that doesn't count
and stuff like that.
Well, like if you look at Camp Blood, that's kind of one show but 3 nights kind of deal. So yeah, 62 separate shows this season.
Amazing.
And did we crack 200 films this year? As I think last year we did pretty easily that number.
I think we must have.
Yeah, you know, I was just going to say I didn't do the letterbox for this year where we kind of put together the entire list of everything that we've played for a season. But it usually falls in line right around there. And even though we lost 2 weeks because of Jeff's passing, I think we made up for that in a big bad way with a lot of the triples and extended nights and things like that. So as Rob said, it feels like it. That's for damn sure. Well, Rob, you have an interesting perspective. You know, so many people are always so curious because you are the one who is running the film and don't often have the time to watch the movies. So your experience is totally different than anybody else's on the lot. the question of, what was your favorite moment or experience on the lot this year? Does anything boil or bubble up to the top for you?
Well, it's a private show, but by its very nature, it's more special because of that. My favorite moments were probably our vow renewal and our wedding, respectively. Being able to put on a great show is a very important thing, but I look at that the same whether you're talking about a sold out crowd or a limited few, a couple dozen, maybe 100 for the wedding. I don't know how many people we had out, but it was a good crowd for the wedding, and it was a good
Great
crowd
crowd.
for the vow renewal too. And those are moments that are much more important than just a night at the drive-in. These are things where you're making people's lives in some case, and those both went spectacularly well. And it was an honor, and I am now friends with some people who I didn't know very well personally beforehand. Krista as well, who helped me with the wedding show. We co-projected the movie for that couple, and it was just fantastic all around.
And the
Yeah.
number of
Certainly
wedding
not.
proposals or marriage proposals that we had, that sometimes we had a hand in, sometimes not, on the lot this year was 6, 8, 10. It was a lot from early in the season right up until the night before. The last wedding proposal, marriage proposal, was at Universal Monsters, wasn't it? So our second to last night, we had a wedding proposal that we cleverly worked into the costume contest at the end of the night. And sometimes people will have us, read something over the air or play something over the radio, and sometimes they'll want to be up on screen, and sometimes it'll be when we had Patty Mullen involved in signing an autograph that included basically a wedding proposal. It's amazing that people want to make us be part of the beginning of their story. It's a huge compliment every time they do it, and we always do whatever we can, shy of breaking international trade laws, to make it happen. And so it was only one wedding and one vow renewal, correct?
Yes, this year. But yeah, like you said, it kind of endless with the love on the lot and the proposals this year. Every year we have a couple, but this year it really felt like we were averaging like one a month at least.
Dave, how about you? I know you have, again, a specific perspective and angle to watch any movie out by the gate. What does your where does your head go with favorite moments or events this year?
I have to say, I think one of my favorite events, favorite moments was Camp Blood this year. I am a huge Friday the 13th fan. I've loved that series my entire cinematic life. And the opportunity this year to meet Adrienne King was just astounding. I mean, and of course, Amy Steele as well, obviously, but to meet the original Friday the 13th final girl was mind blowing, and to be able to talk to her and get my photo with her while I was dressed as Crazy Ralph.
Yes.
What a trip. I mean,
And they were so lovely too. Both of them were so amazing.
yeah, they were the nicest guests, the kindest. The fact that they went out and participated in the games was totally amazing. I thought that was so cool of them to do that. So really, I mean, and the fact that I got to watch 10 Friday the 13th movies didn't hurt either. So that was a great weekend. I had an amazing time.
Those two were just amazing and loved the atmosphere and the team and everything that we represent, as we often do with our guests. They kind of fall in love with the experience beyond what their normal kind of stop is on their route. But both of them, I gotta say, Adrian,
When she was signing her film reel, which we get every single guest to sign a 35 millimeter reel. Now we have so many of them. She started writing down everybody's name. She would be like, who's the girl who gave me the corn dog earlier? What was her name? It's like, oh, that was Crystal. She writes down Crystal's name. So like everybody's getting their love. And yeah, that weekend was just out of this world. Both of those guests, absolutely fantastic. Mark, how about you? I mean, it's very tough, to pick a favorite. Like you said, it's kind of endless with these stories, but
Well, I just finally found a list of all of the shows, every movie that we ran this season. So I'm furiously looking over that to try to remember much of any of it. And boy, we showed so much good stuff. It was so fun. I mean, glancing at this, the Agfa Triple Ripper, I always have to give a shout out
yes.
to
Oh,
Ivan and the gang at Agfa. That is one of the most fun shows we do, with some of the deepest cuts, the weirdest movies that don't play anywhere else, maybe have not hit a screen, certainly in this section of the country and forever. And that was just insanely fun. Getting to play a Hard Day's Night, the rare print of a Hard Day's Night with Beatles. I did an all Beatles DJ set, and there was something that we have a quirky little board for our DJ booth, and occasionally, you have to pinch it here and blow on it here and think happy thoughts, and it'll work fine. And for some reason, we were having an issue where it was only going out in one channel, and a lot of the Beatles stuff I was playing was fake stereo, which they did sometime in the later 60s or 70s for the mono Beatle records, where the vocals are in one ear and the music is in the other ear. And people kept coming in and saying, "There's no vocals, it's just instrumental." And we didn't know how to fix it. So like half of my Beatles DJ set was essentially karaoke for anybody who knew the words. We
Works
had
nicely.
we had vendors out with cool Beatle related stuff and records. My friend came up from Atlanta and had some really cool stuff for sale, some of which I bought. And that was a super blast. I mean, VHS Fest is great every year, hanging with the found footage guys and Josh and Ross and all the insane number of vendors that we always have. There's I'm not going to read every one, but Schlockerama, one of my favorite shows. Those are like some of like the first drive-in movies that we play at the drive-in, and it was like a 70s edition, which is kind of my sweet spot. That was super fun, trying to stay up through 4 movies every night that are not necessarily short films every night.
That,
Um,
that VHS Fest was so brutally hot this year too. I mean, that was like, wasn't it like that was like it went like over 100 degrees. It was
Seems like
crazy.
every year VHS Fest that weekend is just like, we're so blessed with the weather traditionally, but it just gets so hot. Yeah. It's one of those weekends where we're always, checking on each other if we need waters. No solace on the Mahoning line.
well, I always say there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to run on the lot. When it's super hot, if you sit in your car heats up. Even if you have the AC on, that sun blasts through. You go inside, it's hot inside. Sometimes
40 degrees hotter.
yeah,
I don't know if this is going to sell tickets, guys.
yeah, well, we're talking about the past. Who's to say it'll ever be like that again?
But it's a dry heat.
It's a dry heave. Don't you-
VHS Fest made me please. I say it could monsoon the entire 3 days and people would just rock out. They love that event.
It's such a
So
destination
much.
for so many
Yeah.
people now. It's their tribal gathering of people who are into analog retro VHS media and stuff. And it really, like, people, some of the vendors, they save up their wares for a whole year to bring it out there. And then if they don't sell it, they leave it with us and we get free tapes. One show I did want to mention, because I again had totally forgotten about it, was the Great Gilbert Tribute Show.
Yes.
It was a screening of Problem Child. It did rather poorly, but those of us who were there, and we had involvement with the people from the Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast, and we had a special, the rabbi from the podcast created a special interactive trivia game based around Gilbert Gottfried and his podcast.
That
And
was a lot of fun.
that was super fun. We had Gene Beretta and I came up with one of the stupidest things I've ever had a hand in, where we had Gene modify. You have to look it up. Look up Gilbert Gottfried, Cesar Romero, and you'll know all about it. But he created this cartoon image of Cesar Romero as the Joker with his pants pulled down and a target on his butt that we threw actual orange wedges at. And again, this sounds like I've just had a stroke to anybody who doesn't know what the in-joke
I have a
is.
picture of your stroke on my phone, good sir.
But it was so much fun and so amazing. There was a Ray J. Johnson impersonator there. Again, almost nobody knows what I'm talking about, but it was astounding that this guy came out. And it was one of those shows where you gamble and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Everybody there had a wonderful time. I crafted this like 20-minute post-show thing. We did the drive-in premiere of Kevin Doherty's Vermeer of the Borscht Belt documentary about Drew Friedman, which was great. And sadly, as the night went on and it was a Sunday, fewer and fewer people remained. So by the time that post show I put together ran, there was like 6 people there, but it was super fun and funny. And that's the
Well,
kind of thing you love,
that meant like a 50% retention that night. That was a really intimate front row because
It was.
everyone was there.
Yeah, it was super.
I love
And
when that happens. It's against business, but like I feel like we all win, even though it's not a big pull per se. Like every person that was there was so passionate about why they were there.
Yeah, and the size of the audience doesn't dictate the quality of the audience.
That's
I
right.
I can only say this esoterically because I'm the projectionist in this case, and I don't get to watch the movie with the audience. But the audience we had, as far as I could tell, for the Last Picture Show was excellent. It wasn't very big, but everyone who wanted to be there really wanted to be there for that movie. And I think that's the perfect audience and place for that movie. And I don't want to say anything else because if you haven't seen The Last Picture Show yet, this doofus talking right now shouldn't spoil it for you. Let the people watch it, and hopefully we can bring it back to them in a couple of years.
Yeah. And that was one of those nights, Mark, that I think both of us kind of met after the screening and was just like, that was so good. The Problem Child holds up really, really well. Dark comedy is really well on a lot.
It's a movie
so
that
good.
I had kind of sort of dismissed. Like I remembered seeing it and thinking it was funny, I guess, but I hadn't really thought about it. I thought it was this kid's movie from the past, and you watch it, it's very dark, it's very sharp, and it's extremely funny. And I was so bummed that more people weren't there because I'm sure a lot of people thought like I initially did, which was Problem Child. Yeah, I'm not a kid. I don't care. It's a really funny movie, and God Gilbert's like great in it. So for those who showed up, much like a lot of shows we do, those who showed up had a great time, and we gave them as much show as we would give to somebody who showed up with a night with 400 people there.
Nostalgia extreme sweet spot. I would totally book that for like a 90s nostalgia party or something like that. So I'm going to go through a chunk, and if anything, it's just going to remind us that we played these movies this year. It's kind of crazy.
There's going to be a whole lot of, oh wow, yeah, we did play that, didn't we?
Yeah, and it'll be right off the bat too, because it's like obviously Oz and Wonka kicks things off. This year we had the tribute, which was amazing. Since Dave is here, like I gotta say, what really made that weekend was that slideshow, putting together that or having the ability to show the slides with the mute. Why don't you talk about it? You can probably wax a little better than I on the choices of music and where you came up with all the pictures and all that.
I basically, asked for, well, you had asked for photos for Jeff for his memorial. And, we had all those photos. And, the two movies that we always start with, obviously, are Willy Wonka and Wizard of Oz. And I know those movies meant so much to him. And so it really felt like it would be appropriate and touching to really kind of put two of the songs that I think really sum up those films and our approach to them, Over the Rainbow. Because, listen, we are Oz. We are our own little Oz out there. We're living in our world of, kind of bright colors and happiness. And then, I thought the other song, Pure Imagination, because once again, what do we sell there is nothing but pure imagination. And I know that I hope in my heart that, Jeff looking down would see that and be touched by what we put together for him. So really it was my pleasure to do that.
It was incredible, and it's always our goal and our mission to continue to shine for Jeff, but he has said often that Wizard of Oz is one of his favorite movies, if not the favorite movie. Which reminds me of another story. A fan brought us a teddy bear, and he said, I work and run a Build-A-Bear, and it was the Scarecrow bear. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He's like, well, I heard Jeff say on the podcast that, it was his favorite movie. He's like, squeeze the hand. And of course, Jeff's famous, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, is worked into this bear. It's just such a beautiful piece. And also, one of the concession crew, their mother made a really amazing commemorative bear as well that had all sorts of beautiful stitching, Jeff's name on the foot. Just that's the type of stuff that we got throughout this whole season. People just wanting to share their love and their memories of Jeff. So many people giving us that love. And really that was the way that we started this year off. That's as big a show as that first weekend and show was. It was also an incredible healing process for us as we were all very much in the mourning process still. So to have everybody come together and support us, I've said it many times, it just really filled our hearts and proved to us that we can carry this on and do things the way that Jeff loved it. We were always swinging for the fences, and as I list some of these titles, you're going to see like this is how the Mahoning does it. Right out the gate, guys. Joysticks. That MVD release party.
That was fun.
Oh my gosh.
That
So
was
much
great.
fun. Connected the dots with Mayhem as well, Mayhem Arcades, which you guys know it. We've had the Pac-Man and the pinball machine. Rob loves
certainly
that.
knows.
You got that high score stuff?
I have one of my highest scores as the current high score. I think it's 193,000 and change. Highest was 195 something.
Boom. Yeah. Connecting with those guys was so much fun. We love MVD. They've been real partners in what and supporters in what we do for many seasons, but it really started this idea of like tying into a retro release from these boutique labels, which again, we're going to try to brew that idea a little bit as we move into the future, which is exciting.
The idea with that was that MVD was just about to put out joysticks on a nice special edition Blu-ray where the package looks like an old Atari cartridge cover. And I'm friends with Derek at MVD, so we worked it out so that we gathered like video intros from like the director and some of the cast members. We got and Eric from MVD did one, and then MVD came out and they vended, and we got the video games. It was at the time it was Asteroids and Ms. Pac-Man in the snack bar to turn it into like a mini arcade, and it was ridiculous and super fun. Again, not crazy well attended. And if I remember, did it rain that night, or am I thinking about a year ago when we played Freaked? Maybe I'm thinking about Freaked.
Freaked, it rained like heck.
Yeah, and nobody left.
Didn't matter. I mean, that early, there were so many people that were coming for the first time.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys remember this, but MVD had the most ridiculous prices at their table.
Oh,
I was
my
telling
Lord.
everybody, I saw the prices in advance, and I told everybody, even if it's worth it to buy a ticket just to get these deals on these discs. And I know I think Dave bought a stack. A lot of the staff was stocking up.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm ridiculous. So I bought a ton.
And then we kicked things off in style with our new Thursday Thread Up series, which, gosh, this thing went so far beyond our expectations. But we set the bar very high. Eraserhead right out the gate. We are the home of the David Lynch fan event. So this was just like a little bite size, but God, seeing that movie up on the big screen is just absolute magic. And it was gorgeous. Any memories pop in on that one?
I remember the print being exquisite.
It really was. Like seeing black and white up on that screen just always, and that movie is just like a master stroke. 2 family events back to back, which is rare for the weekends. Muppets Take Mahoning. And this year we had a little mix of Muppets as well as some just other Jim Henson fare. We had Dark Crystal and we had Labyrinth this year. The talent show portion that we added this year was so much fun. And I have Fancy here with me, my lady Fancy. Say hi.
Hi.
I gotta say, like, one of the highlights for me this whole year was Virgie getting up and singing I'm Still Standing in that talent show and rocking it, like absolutely rocking it.
I just always loved that show. I mean, I grew up loving the Muppets, those first several movies and the Muppet Show. So getting something living, breathing version of that on the lot is always cool. With Gene Beretta and his brother Bill's connection to the Muppet organization. Bill, who is extremely connected to the Muppet organization, and the talent show and the sing-alongs that we did, and people with their own puppets or Muppets that they created. It was just wonderful. And then this was the year we had that added bonus of somebody had gifted us silent outtakes from a Muppet Christmas Carol that we
That's
put on screen during
right.
intermission.
Where did that come from?
I
Just random thing?
I don't remember who brought those in. They just handed us this reel. They said that they had somehow gotten a hold of it. And I mean, it's silent, so it's a little weird to watch. So we played it during intermission, and I ran some of the soundtrack of the movie over the radio so that there was, something to correspond to it. But it was a cool little added bonus for super fans.
That type of stuff happens all the time. People bringing in elements, trailers, and I found that. So that's a real kind of spark right there. I totally had forgotten about that.
We had another guest who brought in a commercial. I want to say it was for Visa MasterCard, something like that. And it was just a short 30-second commercial with the Muppets. So we got to play that film for the first time. What's really interesting about the reel from the outtakes on the Muppet Christmas Carol is that I'd been eyeing that up on eBay. I really wanted to get that, but it was, as I recall, a couple $100. It was not inexpensive. So thank you very much to the person who gave it to us.
You know how often that happens where somebody on the lot will talk about missing out on something on eBay, and then within like 24 hours, the person who bought it was like, hey, that's me. Like we were talking to Jeff C on the podcast that he had missed out on a print of The Exorcist that he really wanted. And then like the next week, somebody popped their head in the booth and said, oh yeah, I was the guy that got that. It's the collecting film 35 collector world is not that big. So it is funny how we cross paths with the people who snipe us on things.
And the previous year's Muppets show, the person who I bought the snipe from with the singing for the Muppets and Sesame Street characters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
they
like
identified themselves, not to me, but I believe it was to you, and you recounted it to me.
That piece is so, it's burned into my brain. Whenever it plays, that tune just is stuck in my head. Again, one of Virgie's favorite things about the drive-in is that let's all watch the movies. Sesame Street snipe.
Best $100 I've ever spent.
When I was a kid, there were little things that were animated those are my favorite things about the drive-in. It was a certain intermission reel, the 4 minutes to go where it's the male and female golfer. Yeah, exactly. It's my favorite part. that was the one that I saw as a kid, and it was something it was a cartoon. I got so excited, and every time I went, I was always hoping they were going to play that again. So it's interesting that he has a slightly more modern version of that for himself.
Totally. The vendor markets, as mentioned, again, just an amazing addition to what we do. Every single market, like meeting the creatives, the artists, the local kind of merchants, if you will, is such a treat, added on top of the already amazing idea that we are screening Freaks on 35 millimeter and doing a halfway to Halloween market. It was just a fantastic one. That print as well looked gorgeous from my memory. Am I right?
It looked good from what I could tell, and it's likely the same one we've played in the past, which is in good shape.
We traditionally do that market at the end of April, but it was so successful last year with Freaked. We said, hey, let's do this again, even though it's in May, a little bit past the halfway point, and boy, that was a jammer. Speaking of a jam, Zombie Fest year 10 this year, and it was all Romero madness. Endless highlights. I gotta say, for me, Ken Foray, just like many of our guests, such a lover of his fans and fan base, like a giver, he would be telling stories with us and kind of hanging. He wasn't one of those love and shove guests. He really took in all the love, and I think everybody really appreciated it. Where do you guys go with your Zombie Fest 10 memories?
I'm with you. I mean, the concept of meeting Ken Foray is astounding. I mean, what an icon. The number of times I've watched Dawn of the Dead is ridiculous. And to shake hands with the man and talk to him, those are the experiences. The guests are always fantastic. And to be able to think that I'm meeting somebody who I started watching. I've watched that movie for years, and now I'm actually getting a chance to shake his hand. Is astounding and a great opportunity that we offer. It really is one of the amazing perks of this place.
And he did really good introductions both nights that he was there before the films up front. And we threw it up on the screen. If you're a Patreon member, I put those videos on our Patreon page. But he did this really, he came up to introduce Night of the Living Dead. And I was like, well, what does he have to say about a movie he's not in? But he knew Dwayne Jones from Night of the Living Dead. And he had these amazing stories about dealing with him in New York in the acting community and other things like that. He was a super nice guy. And I knew that he had specifically requested to meet the projection team and get a photo with the projectionists because I think he said he used to work in a theater.
Yes.
And it's funny, at the end of the night, he wanted to make sure everybody on staff who wanted an autograph got one for free. And I went up and I got one from him. And it's a picture of him from Dawn of the Dead with his like eye up against the rifle scope or something like that. And I was going through, I brought that home and to looking for a place to put it. And I was going through some things that I had brought out of storage recently. And I found apparently the previous time I had met Ken Foray 20 years ago at a convention, and he had signed the exact same photo for me. So I could hold them up next to each other and see if the man's signature has changed from the 2003 and 2024. But super nice guy. Yeah.
I got to mention that weekend, I have that photo of Rob and Krista with Ken. Rob, you rocked a tie that whole weekend. I don't know if you did that for that whole month, but you started the season off with like this, I'm going to rock the tie. The
Before
suit, yeah.
it heated up. Yeah.
Yes.
While it was still cool out. I won't wear a necktie in the projection booth anymore. There's just too much chance for something to grab it and
Sure.
then it'd be a problem. But a bow tie, I think I want to recapture that look for a certain type of professional thing.
Heck yeah, I think you're going to get an opportunity this year. Just going to drop that little nugget. Also have to mention about Zombie Fest, always the fandom comes out in full force. Sheila and her creep show cosplay. Did you guys lay your eyes on this? She was the cake.
Yeah.
Bedelia.
It was her head on a platter.
I got a photo with that. Yeah, that was great. I was like, no, I have to get my photo with this one.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the following Thursday would have been our first Patreon. Then we had our Aliens, which Aliens that Saturday was a huge sellout for us. If I'm remembering correctly, Fire in the Sky, Close Encounters Friday, Aliens Saturday, which come on.
And that was another one of those shows where I was like, we book and plan our stuff way in advance. And in the week before that, Alien ran at another couple of drive-ins locally. It had a national re-release through like Fathom Events or through just Fox. And I was like, oh, we are so going to lose on this. And I was so wrong because it just blew the roof off.
Yeah, we totally sold out. I mean, it was crazy. The line and the line just kept going. Just at the gate, all I can remember is, holy mackerel, where are we going to put all these people? It was just so many.
Even if there were any people who saw our show and also saw the wide re-release of Alien, they had a treat because we played the director's cut on film, but if you went to see it in other theaters, you got to see the original 1979 version.
Yes. Some choice memories that I'm thinking of. So Jess was in that alien costume. Do you guys remember that? And she was rocking around. It was like a huge inflatable alien costume. And she went around, I want to say Friday night, and was just such a hit with everybody.
I remember I was walking along the front row, walking to check out, see what was going on at the gate. And I could see the top of that inflatable alien head going between the cars about 5 rows back. And it's just like we say with you, Virgil, where is Virgil? Just listen for the laugh. That night with Jess, it was, you had to look in the distance. You would see the top of that giant inflatable alien bobbing around somewhere where she was probably half blindly in a fog of her own carbon dioxide, finding her way around.
That's right. We had a couple really good cosplayers. And that Saturday, that sellout was the re-release of Showtime at Sundown with the Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company. That was such an amazing weekend. The weather was just solid gold. Also, Eric made these really weird alien like dolls. Do you guys remember these things? And the kids took a couple of them home. They were so weird and so fun. Yeah, that was a fantastic one. Oh my goodness. What did we do that Sunday? Oh, Young Frankenstein that Sunday. Talk about a treat. And that was another amazing crowd.
It was for a
We
Sunday. Yeah,
cosplayers. I remember we had a bunch of people dress up.
Was that not a technical challenge in presenting that film? Wasn't that a print that Jeff bought and it was going vinegar, or the last reel was no good? The last
That's right.
reel was so badly warped that you couldn't keep it in focus. So we had to basically do it. We've done this before. We had to do this for something we won't talk about at the Beatles show. At the last moment, when we're at the end of the last good reel that we'll play, we switched over to digital that was queued up perfectly, and it was seamless. I feel like maybe I was there that night and I witnessed that, and it was just like, while the
Uh,
film and video run at a different speed. So Virgil had the Young Frankenstein playing on Blu-ray at the digital booth up front, and he had to keep like jiggering it a little bit to get back into sync so that when we switched over, it wouldn't either be too far ahead or too far behind. And when it switched over, and now remember, I was standing up front of the digital booth. It was 100% seamless. Like if you were sitting in
yeah.
a car, you would not know that we just did something tricky, which is what you want. You don't want the audience to know. You just want them to enjoy the film and be immersed in the story and not the technical aspects of it. But that was quite a feat, and I was holding my breath and unsure that it would work, and worried that it would look very different when it went from one source to another, and it really didn't.
I think you mentioned we did that before. Didn't wasn't it the real weird weekend where we did that with Holy Mountain?
We did, yes.
I wasn't there for that, but I had also heard that that was seamless.
It was almost seamless. That was a pretty good first try.
I think, speaking of fun, I think maybe my favorite, if I had to pick a favorite, I guess the 75th anniversary show that came up that next Thursday. We did April Showers in Jurassic Park, and it was one of those nights that was just perfect. You know, weather was perfect, turnout was amazing. But the love that we got locally, like it took me back. It really did. Like we had every single, representative at every single level come out and show their love and present us with awards. It was really, really beautiful. And to see April Showers up on that screen, finally, like 75 years later.
I enjoyed that movie. I'd never heard of it other than the historical aspect that it was the first film we ever ran at the Mahoning. And there was a lot of talk as to how we were going to present that and what the order was going to be. And I was kind of feisty about April Showers being first. And people sat and they watched it, and I heard laughs, and they stayed through it to get to Jurassic Park. And we had some really cool Jurassic Park cosplayers who dressed up like Sam Neill and Laura Dern.
Oh, they
And
were so good.
it was a
Yes.
really fun night.
We had a couple Jeeps too, didn't we? Didn't we have a couple Jurassic Park Jeeps?
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of that weekend, though, the one that I really enjoyed that weekend was Clue. And that was another Sunday market with the toy market.
Yes.
That was, I love Clue. And you never see it anywhere. And to be able to see Clue on the big screen was such a treat. And that toy market was so much fun. We had big kid toys, and
Yes, that's when they started their scavenger hunts.
they are such an amazing vendor, like such an amazing vendor and an amazing partner with us. And yeah, that was the first scavenger hunt they did. So that was a great weekend. And we had a great crowd for that too. Clue really turned them out.
Remember the girl that dressed as the singing telegram girl? Oh, she was spot on. Oh, God. Yeah, great vendors, scooping up all sorts of goodies. What did we have after that? I know that we had Little Devils in there.
Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights. Yeah, got to talk about that. And Eternal Sunshine. That was in there as well.
All those shows went incredibly well, but Boogie Nights, one of my favorite memories. Fancy dressed up as Roller Girl. I said forever, like, we were friends since sixth grade, and when that movie hit and everybody was obsessed with it, it was just like, oh, Fancy's Roller Girl, Fancy's Roller Girl. So it was really fun to have her roller skate around the stand and get those photos with her by the projection.
One of my favorites from that night. People are pulling in for Boogie Nights. It wasn't a huge crowd. It was a good sized crowd, but not a huge one. And this family pulls in, and it literally have kids in the back seat. And I'm like, are you sure that you want to be here for this movie? And they're like, isn't this Shankweiler's? I'm like, no.
That happens so often. It is
That is
I don't
so
understand
funny.
how people find their way to us and
And they
we're a
and
place that's an hour away.
Yeah.
said, well, we were going to go see Inside Out too. And I'm like,
That's
no,
right.
no, 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 no. You don't want to come in here. Your kids will discover a whole new emotion that they're not ready for yet. So thank God we turned them away at the door.
You know what's
You
really
never
funny
know.
about that, though? What's really funny about that, and this is a spoiler for, the handful of people who still haven't seen Inside Out 2 and want to, but I'm pretty sure that among the many sexual acts you'll see in Boogie Nights, you do not find fisting, but there is fisting in Inside Out 2.
Spoiler alert.
Wow, man.
You have just sold so many Blu-rays for Inside Out too. You,
People
Well,
are like, I need to
somebody,
see this now.
Pixar needs to be
After-
cutting you a check.
Anger fists pouchy, that's all I'm saying. Thank you, Krista, for noting it.
After this podcast, I'm going to go stream it. That's for sure. Thank God I have Disney Plus. I'm watching that tonight.
There it is.
The next weekend was the Chevy Chase evening, which
Yeah, that was a great one too.
Caddyshack on the big screen. Oh my gosh. And I had so much fun because I got the DJ for the Chevy Chase night, and it was
Yeah.
all 80s comedy theme music. Oh, what a blast.
And we did our Freddy's 40 that weekend as well, which was a blast. We had amazing cosplayers come out. We baked a cake. What did we have that Sunday? Oh, that's right. The Corman event. Gosh, this is literally like bringing up memories of like, I can't believe that was this year. That was amazing to see X, the man with the X-ray eyes.
I think I unfortunately missed that show.
Did you?
I'm one of the biggest proponents of us showing classic 60s, 70s AIP. I think I just
Yeah,
couldn't.
you weren't there.
Initially that show we were hoping to get involvement from Roger Corman. The initial idea, and we did everything we could. I believe we got a letter to his office. We just never heard back. And the idea was just pick a few titles for us to play so we can say these were personally selected by Roger Corman, but we never heard back. So it went from being maybe a night or a weekend to just a single feature. But boy, those movies are so much fun. And the prints that Park Circus has of those, I believe they were struck somewhere in the 90s. So a lot of them look phenomenal on the big screen. So
It was an incredible print.
Super sharp.
they made a point of really utilizing color when they could, which is funny for such a cheap company. I mean, the original prints they struck were usually Eastman and turned beet red, but the prints that Park Circus has are beautiful. Even when we ran Beach Blanket Bingo a year or so ago, that print was gorgeous too.
A friend of mine from here in Harrisburg, that was his first trip up to the Mahoning. He'd never been up there before, and he went up for Roger Corman because he's a big Roger Corman fan. And he was just blown away. He was blown away by the print. He was blown away by the whole experience of the Mahoning. He was just raving about it. So, it's interesting because even those nights where maybe the attendance isn't like through the roof, when we reach out for these kind of events and we appeal to a certain fan base, you may have somebody who this is their first time because this is a movie, or just the Roger Corman movies are their jam, and this is their first trip that they make. So even nights like that, you still put forth 100% because it still may be somebody's first time there.
And you may be, with that obscure title that doesn't pull a ton of people, you may be making one or two or three fans for life who become ardent supporters and spread the word for what we do. So we treat every show like, it's going to be a sellout night. It's just we make fewer corn dogs if it's not.
Yeah, I've even had people thank me for playing things. Sometimes if it's not a secret feature, sometimes it's interstitial. And if it's a short film we play or a feature film that we play, I've had people thank us for doing that.
On that, Rob, I got to say, when we did Universal this year and we showed that Thomas Edison Frankenstein, that just blew my mind. I mean, I have seen stills from that. Because as a horror fan, as as many books as I've read, I've seen 1,000 stills from that, and maybe even a clip or two. I've never seen the whole thing, and to show that it's such an incredible experience because that's like one of the first movies ever made. And we're mixing that in and showing it to people, and that might be their first experience with that. And what a great thing that we're doing in terms of spreading the love of film.
Thank you. I agree. I mean, and thanks to Virgil for taking the digital file and confirming that it worked and getting everything synced up so it could play seamlessly with the film show. Because for anyone listening, we did play Thomas Edison's Frankenstein, but we did not play a copy of it on film. That would be preposterous, because if we had a copy of it on film, we need to preserve it. It's more important for the preservation than the exhibition at this point. Plus, it
Yeah.
would be nitrate, and we don't run nitrate there. But I heard nothing but positive feedback about that. And even if someone doesn't like it, I still think it's worth rolling the dice and giving the audience a rare experience when we have the chance to. So thank you to the Library of Congress for providing the copy.
It would be cool. It would be a lot of fun. Would be to do like an evening of silence. Like Nosferatu and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Phantom of the Opera and the Golem. I just picked that up on one of the keynote sales. It's so interesting to watch these silent films. They're still as thrilling today. And from a historical perspective, you look at that and go, this is where film started. And this is where, the genre started and our love of the genre started. And to know that they still have that power, though, today, it's really, really cool.
I think it would be really cool if we could somehow organize it with, I don't know who has the rights to these films. Many of them are in the public domain. But if you want to talk about the first films ever made, and, some of them are comparable more to, the gifs that we share on the internet now. They're just a few frames, maybe a fraction of a second. But Thomas Edison's Frankenstein, and I know I'm blanking on the actual director's name in this case. Thomas Edison only produced the movie, but that's only, I think, 14 years after the first official narrative film, which was Alice Guy Blaché, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and it's this cute little thing called The Fairy of the Cabbages. And I'm pretty sure you can't even see the original version of that because it was destroyed or lost by other means. And she reshot it, and there's another version of it that you can watch from a few years later. And there's a lot of silent movies like that. The Kiss, Arrival at the Station, I think, was reshot. There were a lot of train movies, and it's hard to keep track of them all.
I love when the lot becomes a film school. I've talked about the memory with Good, Bad, and the Ugly when we got shipped the television print when it was flat instead of scope, and Jeff went out of his way to explain to everybody what the differences were, and even go so far to show, I think, a piece of it. And it was just whenever that can happen, the appreciation level goes through the roof. And what we all love film for and 35 millimeter for, it's preservation of our history, but it's really the preservation of our talents. And like you said, these things hold up, and you can see the artistry in them even when they are 100 years old at this point. So that drive-in icon series is such a hit, and I'm so looking forward to this next year as well. It's something that really allows us to spread the wings a little bit and hit some cool rarities. That 4th of July weekend has also become like a celebration. We did the AGFA event that weekend. We did Easy Rider on 4th of July this year, which was amazing. We had the Beatles night as well, a perfect spot for that Beatles show.
Well, Verge, you skipped over the Big G.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Exhum's show in June was Godzilla Palooza 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this year we had the distinct pleasure of showing perhaps one of the best Godzilla movies of the entire.
That's right. Dave's love for Godzilla 98, biatch. Y'all got to hear it. You spun that night too, am I right?
I didn't spin that night, but I was on the socials selling Godzilla 98 like nobody's business. And, I felt the groundswell. I was at the gate.
I think you actually spun that night, Virgil. I remember you couldn't find the proper version of Green Day's Brain Stew. I
That's
wish I'd have
right.
brought. I have the soundtrack. I have the CD soundtrack, and their remix of that song is fantastic. It's.
Yep, got Godzilla's roar in there.
I think I got it for $1 from the exchange in Pittsburgh. So shout out to our Pittsburgh peeps. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the highlight of that weekend was Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which we played digitally. I can only imagine how next to impossible it is to get a print of that, if it is even possible to get a print of that, whether in this part of the world or elsewhere. I mean, there's some Godzilla movies on film that you could play, but they're either going to have a dubbed voiceover from another language. There's a Russian print of something on eBay last I checked in the Godzilla canon. And most of them don't look particularly good. So it's really amazing what Exhumed has and has access to. That Godzilla 98 print was basically mid condition, as I recall.
And that 4th of July weekend, again, that's kind of become this celebration. We started doing multiple events instead of a solid event because a lot of times people are going away or doing things during the day or have to prepare things during the day. So
It's shifted to be so much more eclectic than it was because we were like, it's 4th of July. Everybody's going to come out and they're all going to watch the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't. They're all going to watch all of the Karate Kid movies. Guess they're not interested. So now we're being much more eclectic and arguably drawing more than we were on these things that we thought were going to be like mainstream slam dunk selections.
yeah, the idea of people spending the holiday with us, they do it all the time, like throughout the whole season. But 4th of July is a really unique one. And we have found that success in kind of breaking it up and doing the singles. Perfect spot for AGFA. You know, they really had a blast coming out this year and having that holiday spot. And that music series, I think that is a really good spot for a Sunday music series to pop that in there and go classic. Again, whenever we can marry those two loves of music and movies up on the lot, it's just such a treat. And that was a show that Jeff was really, really looking forward to. And that in itself was like another tribute night to Jeff. A lot of great memories with that one. Who spun that night, Tony?
No, that was me. That was
That's
I was
right.
saying earlier. That was the night that something was wrong with the audio and everybody was getting
That's right.
an instrumental version of Beatles hits. It was a really good, enthusiastic crowd. So I hit up with a great conversation with this like preteen girl. This sounds really untoward, but she was just this kid who had a really cool like magical mystery tour backpack. I was just like, so what are your favorite Beatles songs? What are your favorite albums? And her father was standing back and he's like, I just wanted to let her have that moment where she could talk to a grown up about Beatles stuff and just be who she is. It was super fun and just really all ages from young people to senior citizens who remember them when, from the Ed Sullivan show and stuff like that. It was just, it was really cool. It's that when we can hit our stride doing shows like that, where you're like you always say, like you hit a fandom, you get somebody who's these group of people who love this thing, and there also happens to be a movie connected to it, and essentially it's a convention during the day and a screening at night.
That next Thursday, we had a couple really great Thursdays in July with Repo Man, Princess Bride, and Sundays as well. We had that wrestling market, which was insane this year.
We brought the wrestlers back this year.
That's right. They didn't rain, and it was a sellout for them, like literally hit sellout numbers. It was a real success story for LVAC because we've been trying to find that sweet spot and build this audience. And it, like, obviously, pandemic, when we first launched it, everybody was coming to the lot. But I think we really, really found it, sold a lot of new fans on that experience. And it's always such a treat. You know, I'm away every weekend for Schlockerama, and I missed Wizards this year too, but I heard that went really well. I take it the print was gorgeous.
I was there. I think I wound up going home as the movie was starting. Like I worked up until showtime, and I remember the print looking good. And that came to us from our friends at the Brattle Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They were super generous to loan us that print when we were up there for our road show at the Somerville. And you got that private tour of the Brattle and how their inner workings, their amazing like back projection system there and stuff. And yeah, that was a well-attended show. And it had a real, what I saw of it, I still never seen the whole movie on a big screen. The vibe was very drive-in. Like it really
Yeah,
fit our setting really well.
I
It was
love
a
it.
really good vibe that night. The print was in nice condition, a little warm, which is expected for a 70s movie. I assume, the same print about 10 years ago at the Alamo Draft House in Littleton, Colorado. And good color retention on that print. It was a really fun night.
Yeah, so glad we got to be able to do that. And we'll have to see if we can fit that in for this year as well. The Bakshi filmography is deep, and
The
there's a lot of
problem
good
with
ones in
Bakshi that
very
when we were initially, that's another show that initially was going to be a double at least, and
right.
we found it so hard to find prints of those films, like the classic Bakshi '70s stuff. I don't know if maybe we didn't want to go with the X-rated Fritz the Cat in Heavy Traffic, but when you get into Lord of the Rings and Fire and Ice and Rock and Roll and all that other stuff, there's just like no prints to be had, or the rights are really messy. And Wizards was like the easy one to get. I think Cool World probably would be an easy one to get too. I don't know if it would draw as much as the others, but Bakshi
Yeah.
has that gritty counterculture '70s vibe to it that it would be nice if we could find a way to make that work down the line.
Yeah, it's love the animation odes. You know what I mean? It's like a true artist night. Thursdays in August, we had Motel Hell, which was fantastic. Videodrome. We had Last Picture Show, as we mentioned. That might have been one of my favorite screenings on the lot, just like Night of the Hunter and just like Badlands last year. Like, it's when we can shine a light on a true classic, like a must see, it draws the right people, without a doubt. The Monster Squad reunion. Oh, that was so much fun. The guys came to play this year. Not only did we have Andre Gower return, but we had Ryan Lambert join the Mahoning family. And again, a just mind bending, amazing moment that Mark actually captured on film. We are that good now that whenever something good happens, like we reach for our phones, like content. But the guys were so sweet, pulled me aside and just thanked me for everything for the weekend. They did this really cool thing where they welcomed me into the Monster Squad Club and gave me this card and all this other stuff. But just such a treat being able to relive your ultimate fandoms and the movies that shaped you, holding that original Stephen King Rules shirt that Andre blew my mind with. So many good ones. Anything pop for you guys on that weekend? That would have been the Gilbert weekend as well, which we went over that.
I just remember how nice those guys are and how much fun they had with the whole idea. Like, wasn't the deal they were coming out for their vacation and they were going
Yeah,
to do
they
their show in New York, and they kind of just said, "Why don't we come and hang at the Mahoning?" Because Andre had such a great time the last time he was there.
Yeah, we had them like on the calendar this year, and we were trying to find a way to make it work. And they were coming to the East Coast that week, and they wanted to do a New York vacation with their ladies. And it just worked out timing wise, like perfectly. They came in, and when they were done, they headed up to New York and then headed to their next event. It was just a really, really great time. And I do consider, like, when we say these people are part of the family, like, truly, these people care about our success. These are the type of people that check in on us and seeing how we're doing. So it's just one of those great relationships. I would bring Andre back every year. I swear to God, I would. That following weekend, Grindhouse,
Oh,
y'all. Ah,
the car. The
the
car was
car.
amazing.
Jesus.
Carr is the best guest we've ever had at the drive-in.
That's what people kept saying. Best guest you ever got. The idea of seeing that car, touching that car. But our main man let people get on the hood and strap down and relive the craziness of Death Proof. That was just magic incarnate. Oh, man.
And he wants to come back. We got to get him back.
Yeah, he actually is working on his next show car, reviving, I should say. And that was the cool thing about that story is that car was just junked and he found it and he took it upon himself to repair it best that he could, but also keep its kind of cool beat up nature that every single hit has a story.
Well,
Uh,
you didn't mention how he got that car to the lot, right?
that's right. He rolled up in an A-team van.
He's pulling the car. I didn't know. I was driving to the lot. I was just getting there for work, and I'm driving up the road, and here I see the A-team van come driving past, and I'm like, "What? Was that just the A-team van?" I'm like, well, someone's getting their ass kicked. That's for sure. I mean,
See, this is what I like to call Friday at work.
Yes, I'll tell you. Yeah, we've had the mystery machine show up randomly this year. We love when that type of stuff happens. And that weekend was just bonkers because we had a sellout for the punk rock market with The Crow. That event just exploded. The love for that movie is ripe. A lot of
yeah,
fans wearing
I don't think we.
costumes,
Yeah, I
makeup.
don't think we saw that as selling out. I mean, that was big.
Huge. And one that like I really think the punk rock markets connect maybe the most with people besides obviously VHS Fest, but the punk rock market and the vendors that came out for that, it felt like, oh, this is an extension of VHS
Yeah, I mean, it and the fan base that turned out for it. Holy mackerel! I think we shut down every hot topic in 3 states.
Fest. Oh man, the Blair Witch experience with Matt Blasey, that was an amazing one. Not going to spoil what those secret features were, but we had a lot of fun with those secret features. And the Blues Brothers would have been that next weekend as well. I think that might have won for the most played trailer of the year for sure.
I think you're right. It's one of those trailers that could play for a family audience to a certain extent.
That's right.
I missed seeing it after we finished,
No.
the window of advertising.
Yeah, that was a really fantastic weekend. Our Disney Vault, again, an event that was a perfect match with Bree and Mike at the Big Kid Toy Store. They did
Absolutely.
such an amazing job with that.
Please discuss how that changed between concept and execution in the week before the show happened.
Oh, yes, that's right. We had Lion King booked to play on that Saturday, I believe. No, both days. We ended up doing a double, same double both days. Yeah, and they've reached out. There was confusion because confirmations were going to Jeff's old email, which we didn't have access to, and it was a whole thing. But anyway, they last minute canceled because of the Mufasa movie, which still hasn't come out by the time that we are recording this. But I guess they didn't want to confuse things, so yeah, we had to do a switcheroony. But it was a really great switch because people love Little Mermaid, and the fandom came out specifically for that movie on both nights.
It'll probably come out and close by the time people are listening to this, but that was a lot of fun because I got to spin that weekend. I got to do the DJ set on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun putting that DJ set together. Like for 2 weeks, I was like in like Disney zone. I was watching Disney movies. I was between the slideshow and the DJ set. I like went down a very deep Disney rabbit hole, and I had so much fun with that set though, and it was a lot of fun. Just when we do family events like that, I think it's fun because it really does bring out the kids, and the kids have such a good time.
Yeah, honestly, as crazy and hardcore as the Mahoning has become known to be, it's those family events that you just know, you can see it, that these kids are falling in love with the experience, and they're going to carry that with them for it's the same thing that we all had when we were youngsters, falling in love with the drive-in. I just love seeing that and delivering that to a young audience.
For me, it was a weekend where they're not movies. I mean, they're movies I saw when they came out, and I liked them fine. But I'm not a Disney guy, so like when we announced it, I was like, oh, well, I'll work it. But it was so much fun, like the sheer passion and joy that everybody in the audience had made it a super fun weekend for me, just dealing with the customers and the audience and just being around what the big kids store did and all the stuff they had for sale and the cool little games they were playing with everybody and stuff. And turned out to be, even though I didn't watch the movies, I had a really great time for those 2 days.
Yeah, making those memories. I'm remembering now that was the weekend that Virgie and his cousin Frankie did the lemonade stand outside, which was
That's right.
kids were all coming up and we
That
put
was
out
good lemonade.
really good lemonade. Well
Yeah.
done.
You know, it wasn't my favorite of the season, but my favorite thing that weekend would have been Trailer Park. I
Yeah.
think my favorite trailer park of the whole year was after Wizards. And I'll leave that for the people who were there to have appreciated. But
Believe
after the
people
Disney show,
appreciate it. They kept
what's that?
sending me messages. They're like, "You're missing it. This is the best post show ever." Yeah.
After the Disney double feature, we ran an hour of classic Disney trailers on film. And I'm not exaggerating when I say we could have doubled that, but for, the time and cost of electricity and how much caffeine it's going to take to keep your projectionist going another hour. But that was so much fun to do, and I look forward to doing those things again.
Absolutely. We also had there seemed to be so many cats on the lot that weekend. We had the baby kitten that the one family brought, and we had the one lady who brings her cat on a leash with the blue eyes, the Siamese cat. But yeah, that maybe like the ultimate family event and planted that seed perfectly. It was such a hit. We just know we can set it up for success, and we know we're playing next year. We got to make it up for people with Lion King next year. So
The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast.
I think that's the move for sure. Well, in true Mahoning fashion, that took a right turn from Disney and Walt's Vault into Scorsese Sunday, Taxi Driver. Seeing that on the screen again, like a movie that rocked my world and just opened me up to a whole other kind of world of gritty films. That was just such a beautiful experience.
That was a great print too. I don't remember where it came from. I think it was the studio though, not a collector. It's not my favorite Scorsese, but it's arguably his greatest movie. I think you can say that about at least a dozen of them, which speaks to the quality of his output.
Yeah, it's exciting how it went well, like the back sheet to be like, well, we can keep this going.
Yeah, and that was a fun night too from the perspective of putting together trailers, because we have a pretty good amount of Scorsese trailers between the Drive-Ins collection and mine, and Krista might even have one. I don't recall, but we ran a trailer of mine that I've had for years and haven't played yet for The Last Temptation of Christ, and it was the first time that trailer had ever played anywhere. So when you come to the Mahoning, you're not just going to see what's on the program. You're possibly going to see some extremely rare pieces of film play, maybe the first time, maybe for the last time. It's hard to say.
That's what I love about this team, just elevating the experience, every night.
And it's part of what really makes it, I think. And that applies to both the audience and certainly mine and Krista's perspective. Like, we enjoy playing the movies, maybe even more than watching them. It's hard to say.
Of course, the holiday weekend, Labor Day weekend with Camp Blood 10 this year. This was a big year for Exhumed with the 10-year anniversary and really 10 years of our partnership together. Any choice memories from Camp Blood? I mean, gosh, it's kind of endless. Like you said, the Camp Blood games were a hit. The girls got involved. It was nuts.
Oh yeah, I love. Well, first of all, I love the movies. So seeing part one on Thursday night, and then the 2, 3, and those are my favorite chapters. So I had a blast, and listen, I got to dress like Crazy Ralph for 3 days. A role I feel I've aged into like pretty well. So
like a fine wine, my friend, like a fine wine.
You do it very well, yeah.
And that would have been the weekend. The youngsters that were featured in the At the Drive-In documentary showed up once again with their family to really, I mean, they were there to enjoy the show.
It's basically the way Al edited it, it's
Yeah.
just saying, I don't know who would bring kids to horror movies. And then you
Yeah.
come to this family, this guy and his two little sons who were, boy, they were not very old when that film was shot.
Yeah.
And seeing them again as guys, like I didn't hear them talk, but I presume they said, hello, how are
They
you?
both had mustaches, albeit not very thick, but they were there. Sebastian and Stefan, of course, from the award-winning At the Drive-In documentary. Yeah, such a treat to see those guys, and honestly, to see their parents again. Like, they were so just appreciative of what the documentary represented to their family, and it's this great kind of moment that they cherish, and it was huge in their childhood and all that. So I just love that that's the ultimate representation. Like, kids are growing up on the lot with us at the Mahoning and becoming the next generation. It's just wild. Huge shout out to, of course, Exhumed and the whole Exhumed crew. Dan always does an amazing job as our head camp counselor. I mean, how do we not talk about the Fabio show? Like, I think that's gotta be. I mean, it's gotta be. It's definitely our pinnacle of the year. Like, we raised the bar with that show. We proved a point with that show. We started booking other shows off of that show. So,
Have we talked about that show on the podcast yet?
I mean, if we did, it wasn't in full length besides it being a success. But yeah, that was a ultimate weekend because we had Grady for 2 days and then we had Fabio on Sunday, which was just like unreal. Unreal.
We showed Suspiria on Saturday night. That was a gorgeous print.
Yeah, amazing. And Grady, we've said this many times, Grady has really grown with us on the lot too. I'll never forget, like, year 2, him coming out with I guess My Best Friend's Exorcism. And now he's just such a huge draw on his own. Like, he's become such a success and people love his work. But that Fabio show, like, so many memories. Him coming and showing up on the lot, like, first off, him and his whole crew were absolutely amazing. They loved what we do at the Mahoning. Fabio, I'll never forget, right away went inside, checking out the 35 millimeter, falling in love with that, playing the pinball. Like, that's the guys at Mayhem were just like, come on, this is the greatest thing ever.
And I don't know if we mentioned it, it's Fabio Frizzi, who is Italian film composer who did a lot of score from The Beyond and Zombie and Lucio Fulci films and Italian crime films and all kinds of stuff like that. And he has been on tour. He did it once before. He does these tours with a full band where he plays the score to a film live as you see the film. And the copy of the film they play is digital, and it has all the music stripped out of it. So any music you hear is being played live by the band, and it's a really good band. And it was the first time we've had live music there before, but it's the first time we've had somebody of his caliber doing something like this at the theater. So it was a little bit of a holding our breath with, can we pull this off technically? We brought in professionals, but how will this work? And the answer is kind of perfectly and extremely loudly. I was sitting up front and I was like, wow, that's a little loud. I am of the fogey nature that I feel like every show that I go to is really louder than it needs to be for the room. But it was our sound guy was doing what he normally would do for a concert, but I was starting to field messages from neighbors saying, I live a mile away, my windows are shaking. I live a mile away. I can hear the dialogue. What's going on? So there was a little bit of running interference and placating people. The whole show wrapped up by 10. And it was cool. It's just some people didn't appreciate the sounds of the score to Fulci's Zombie when they were on Sunday night.
Which boggles my mind that somebody wouldn't appreciate that. I mean, they got a free concert. Seriously, just open your windows. You're getting a free concert. If they're shaking, just open them. Enjoy.
It was a little cold that night, though.
It was, yeah. Yeah, that was just amazing. And again, got to give a shout out to Justin, our sound guy, that night. Even talking to him after the fact, he's like, hey, I can always bring it down. He's like, I had to prove that we could do this and do it right. So yeah, really exciting. And again, exciting to know that that bar was raised and we can continue to do cool stuff like that.
I got to talk to Fabio when he was alone in the snack bar. It was so cold and there's nowhere that's really heated at the drive-in. So as the band is playing, I see them adding more and more layers. They're wearing their Mahoning pumpkin hoodies on stage, which was good promotion for us. And they brought Fabio in afterwards he did some signing for people and he just stayed Val made some hot cocoa and he sat and she had also made Italian coffee for the guys beforehand too, which was pretty cool. He was just in the snack bar to warm up while they loaded up the van and he and I were chatting and he was just over the moon about the venue and he'd never done a drive-in before and he's like, you need to have Claudio come out here. I'm going to tell him he should play here. That's Claudio Simonetti from Goblin who tours with the band. It was a really great vibe all night. Angry Neighbors aside, it was one of the coolest nights I think we've had of the year.
Yep. Sometimes you got to take those big swings. That following weekend, another one for the books. That Shining screening was absolutely awesome. Luther's Mid-Fright Snack with the world premiere of Pizza Party Massacre, which ironically, I'm wearing the Pizza World t-shirt. That event was amazing to get to see Hayden's work come to full fruition, and not just Hayden's. My good friend Ben Money and Lapses, aka Matt Cannon, all worked on this film. It was like a Mahoning family production, but to see it was just such a treat, and people ate it up, no pun intended. Did you guys get to see it?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I had to miss that night, but I saw the trailer at VHS Fest and it looked like so much fun. It looked like the kind of thing that we would play at VHS Fest. Hopefully one day it will. And
Yeah.
everything I'd heard that it was well attended and the people who were there really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Our Coppola event went amazingly. Our Wizard video game night went amazing. California. I love hanging out with Justin from RetroWare. He's got a shop right in Lansdale, which is close to my house. And he does an amazing job there. It's literally the video game store that Virgil shops at that I take him to. Yeah, hanging out with him, doing the commentary over the competition every year is always such a highlight. Us just chuckling it up and making fun, stupid jokes together is always a treat. That following weekend would have been Weekend of Terror. We had Up in Smoke, which there's a story there. We didn't get the print. We made that show work. It was an unfortunate event, but really, really fun one. Weekend of Terror.
I'm a big Texas Chainsaw fan, so for me, I'm always down for Texas Chainsaw. So that was a big hit, and oh my gosh, so many cosplayers for both nights, but they really brought the cosplay for the Evil Dead night. I mean, that was intense.
That photo we got on the photo op stage of all of the ashes on stage at once was insane. It was a lot of people dressed as Ash from, Army of Darkness or Evil Dead or whatever. And it was hilarious and ridiculous and wonderful.
Yeah, that was a fantastic one. That would have been the same weekend as the wedding as well, which we mentioned, one of the highlights of the season. That following weekend, John Waters returned. So many great memories with John. I was able to get Fancy's Crybaby poster signed for Fancy. And he, of course, told amazing stories. I was so worried that it was going to be one of those things where it's like so impersonal and, we hand the item off, he signs it, and then we hand it back. And it's like, yep, there you go. But he really was into the idea of having people come up and chat with him while he was signing and all that. So yeah, I'm sure a thrill for all of us here, right?
I want to shout out to Mark as a thank you for helping me get my book signed. I have a original first print, paperback, but of his book that he published in like the early 80s, Shock Value. And that book, I got that at a very young, impressionable age when, I loved film, but it really introduced me to sort of a more avant-garde kind of film. And it just kind of pointed me in a new direction. I loved that book. And I've had that same copy for all of these years. And Mark helped me get it signed. And thank you, my man. Still appreciate that. Having that book signed is really cool.
Well, that was a team effort because I believe at one point I handed it to Jess or maybe it was Virgil, and I said, Dave really needs to get this signed. Then I'd see the book still sitting there. I'm like, make sure you get that signed for Dave.
Yeah, we made that happen.
You guys are the best. You guys,
It takes a village to secure a John Waters autograph.
and you guys are my village, and I appreciate you for that. Thank you so much.
And then John Demmer had done that amazing set that recreated the multiple maniacs.
Oh,
being
Lobstora.
accosted by a giant lobster on a couch scene, and everybody was so impressed with that. And the cosplayers, there was the naked guy in the jockstrap with the pizza box that I'm sure was a film
Yes.
reference.
Crushed.
It was it was never boring that weekend.
It's a high watermark, but I still think that might be John Demmer's finest work. That recreation of Lobstora is it's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I believe Harry has it. I hope that it's being protected for use down the road. That said, I think that pretty much everyone here would probably agree that the highlight of the weekend was the commentary. For
Oh.
those of you listening, John Waters did something that I don't believe he has ever done before, which was to do a live commentary to one of his movies. It was Polyester, which Krista projected quite perfectly, in my opinion, and under very difficult circumstances because it was raining and because there was something going on with the audio that Harry was working on during the movie. There was a lot of commotion in the projection booth. She kept her cool. She manned that ship through the storm, and we arrived as scheduled at the dock.
Yeah. That was just, he is one of those guests that is next level for us. The fact that we, are the home of John Waters Filthy Film Festival and all that. It's just, these are the type of experiences as we go over this calendar that are like, how do you go from that to just regular life again? It's very difficult, very difficult. I've been keep telling everybody, we'll just meet up every weekend. I'll run digital until I can't anymore, and we'll just keep this train going.
Well, I mean, it's like I'm going through the adjustment that you guys are with the off season, but unlike, I forget who said it at the beginning of this episode, but the movies are always first for the projection team. They're first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So right now, as much as I miss the drive-in, I'm really happy to be going to bed at 11 o'clock and getting regular sleep on weekends and catching my breath. And we're still not done. There's still things to be finished at the theater, and we're going to meet with our friend Bob in a couple weeks to work on winterizing the booth in a way that we never have before. We're not open to the public, but the work really never stops.
That's right. And plotting and scheming, I mean, that's really
the highlight of the off season for us is really massaging the shows for 2025, which, boy, there's a lot to look forward to. Cherry on top for that John Waters weekend, the Christine Carr show. Like, how amazing was that to hang with the Christine Carr? And again, another beautiful night. We got a little bit of sprinkles during the movie, but perfectly timed. Everybody was able to get their photos, and I put lights on the car while the movie played, and just like having it there watching the movie essentially was really, really fun.
And like Death Proof, that was a car that came to us. I mean, there was no driver in it. It just showed up and it came. The owner of the Death Proof car contacted us when he saw we were playing Grindhouse, and the owner of the similar Christine car contacted us when it was called Christine's Car Show because we were working with the group that does online auto reviews, and they were going to have some cars there. And it turned out, people just showed up with cool cars, which was great in addition to that. And then this owner of this Christine car was like, yeah, any interest in me bringing this out? Yes.
Yes, heck yes. Made that show such a highlight. Speaking of highlights of the year and maybe of our run, the Mystery Science Theater fan event. Oh my God. Joel is a dream, an absolute dream. He loves his fans so much. He loves the Mahoning and brought that love with him. And we got to give endless thanks to Harold Buckholz for taking his love of the Mahoning Drive-In Theater to the Mystery Science Theater offices and really making this happen. So I'm sure, again, endless memories for you guys on this one.
It was just fun, you know? Everybody was just happy and thrilled, and it was a fan convention. Like, I don't know that Mystery Science Theater has an official fan convention. Maybe it'll be this show every year. So many people dressed up in their jumpsuits and with their bringing their fandom there. The costume contest was we had a Torgo and a Master from Manhunt. That guy was the Torgo, just lived that character during the Q&A, which was just hilarious. Joel was super nice, super fun. Harold was great. It was just and it's one of those things where when we came up with the concept of it, I was the one who said, "Can we show something on film? Just sort of do what we do." And Joel picked films each night that were really cool. Unfortunately, one got fogged out. The one that I was most looking forward to seeing, because it was just the fog was impenetrable for the big circus. And Krista had said that that print was beautiful.
It's one of the best looking prints I've ever projected, and nobody saw it.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
But it was a super fun weekend, and folks did stay for those last movies that were films Joel picked that he wished they could have done on the show or something, or that had drive-in memories for him. If anybody wants to hear, we did do a podcast with Joel and Harold. It's a few episodes back, and it was a ton of fun and really, really funny. But great guys, and I'm so glad they had a good time.
The episodes that, the films that they picked were outstanding. I mean, they were real. And the cool thing about Joel is that he doesn't, he's willing to kind of acknowledge all the seasons. He doesn't really just pick the stuff that he's in. He wanted to make sure that everybody was represented, and it was a great representation of the newest stuff and some of the oldest stuff, and all of it was hilarious.
I agree.
You could hear the people on the lot laughing out loud.
That was what I remember now that you bring that up, was you watch a show like that, anything on TV, a comedy, usually you're watching it alone and maybe you laugh or the person you're with is laugh, but you don't experience these TV episodes with an audience laughing at it. And that was really interesting to hear really hearty laughter throughout the entire lot during these Mystery Science Theater episodes. It was a really unique experience. It made them funnier, I think.
Yeah, and I will say that if not necessarily second to, then maybe tied for first place with my favorite performance of the year. Because I spoke about Krista before. She was nailing those changeovers during polyester, even when people were shining flashlights in her eyes. But we did a little bit of a thing at the Mystery Science Theater show, and during a little intro to one of the movies, I played Dr. Forrester, and Dave, yours truly, played TV's Frank, and his performance as TV's Frank knocked my socks off. You had 2 lines of dialogue to work with, and you made so much with it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, hey, next year we'll work up a bigger sketch.
We'll do something, maybe even dress up. I really wanted to dress up as Torgo the night before. It would have been so much fun to actually do that, but we just didn't have the time or the resources.
I think what we do is you dress as Torgo and I dress as Ortega. And, we just have, a whole conversation between Torgo and Ortega. I mean, that's...
and that would be a great episode to play, too. I mean, there's over... 200, I think there's 239 episodes or something like that still exist, because there's one that's still lost. I mean, we could do this without any repeats for a very long time.
Very long time. And I guarantee you it would only grow, because those Mystery Science Theater fans that were there, if they will be back next year and they will tell their friends about it, and they'll be here next. I guarantee you that's one that will only increase as we go on.
Special thanks to Zachariah Smith, Mystery Science Theater superfan, who aided a lot in this show, as well as donating an insane array of Mystery Science Theater items for our raffles. And Gene Beretta, who was able to put together some really cool intros by some of the newer cast members of Mystery Science Theater that we were able to play on the second night. Everybody, it's one of the great things about the community we have, is people are willing to go above and beyond to make our shows better for us. And so didn't want to get through that section and not mention those guys.
Absolutely. Also, before we skip the Christine Carr show, we did have some vendors out, and we met Tyler Workman and his family, Tyler's the one who repurposes old drive-in speakers, and he was just become such a friend and fan and supporter of what we do. And I love his attitude as a father. He includes his kids in all of his work. The love of the drive-in that he has is so infected his children, and it warms my heart to no end. So wanted to make sure I gave a shout out to Tyler, as he's become a really great addition as well. Then we head into October. I mean, so many cool things in October. Our Sunday shows are Vincent Price, American Psycho, and Shaun of the Dead screenings, Frailty and Eaten Alive on Thursdays, the Halloween-a-thon. And this year, we had some bangers for the Halloween-a-thon. Any choice memories, Pop, for any of those Thursday, Sunday shows or Halloween-a-thon?
I mean, I love Vincent Price. So that Vincent Price double feature of Abominable Dr. Dr. Phibes Rises Again with in video intro by Justin Humphreys, who wrote the Dr. Phibes Companion, which was great. And he got a really good laugh in a little Vincent Price anecdote. Phibes Rises Again, I'd forgotten how much fun that movie is, and it makes me wish they had made more of those films.
I know.
And it looked gorgeous. And then Dr. Goldfoot in the Bikini Machine.
Highlight of the year, baby.
Well, I said to Virgil, like, we need to show this a lot. This is the greatest thing maybe ever have shown here. The print was gorgeous, and it's just a ridiculous spoof of the beach party movies and the spy movies of the time. And Vincent Price is just a hilarious maniac. And then so many amazing companies that donated items for our raffle that it was just this huge Vincent Price raffle. It was just for a fan. And again, it wasn't a show that was crazy well attended, but the people who were there had a really good time. And that probably was one of the highlights of my year, was that quiet little Vincent Price double feature.
So fun. So fun.
I remember there being a really good raffle that night too, which I did not win.
And there was a guy dressed up as Vincent Price, and he was great. Had the smoking jacket and everything.
Yes, that's right.
We always get the great cosplayers for the Halloween-a-thon too. There's like one great photo I saw online of you, Verge, with like this little mini Michael Myers stabbing.
Minnie Myers, yes.
You know, probably the highlight of that weekend too, and I say that having not even been there Friday night, but that Friday night we got to run the print of Trick or Treat. As I understand it, there's only one.
Yeah, we got
maybe
the print.
No way.
Yep.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I might have even been there if I'd have realized it was going to be a print. I think that people just assumed that it was digital because it was digital the last time we played it, which was, I think, 2 years ago. And this time we got the print, and it went, as I understand it, directly to the new Bev after us.
That's correct. And if I'm remembering correctly, that Friday we also got the visual Aurora Borealis that night, which I don't know if any of you guys got the photos, but it was just so wild to see the sky kind of come to life.
One of the other fun shows we did, a Thursday show, was Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive, which I love. That's a great movie. It doesn't get as much love as Texas Chainsaw, but it's a trip. I mean, that movie is a ride, and it was so much fun seeing it on the big screen. Never saw it on the big screen before.
It was so Grindhouse too, because from my memory, it was like a Frankenstein print where it would go pristine to beaten up to pristine again to beaten up.
Yeah, you could tell that they repaired it with some older print, and that just made it more of an even like, this is a Grindhouse movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great Robert Englund performance in that too.
So good. So good. And of course, our final family event of, well, I guess the Universal Monsters could be considered a family event too with the draw that we get. But we did Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood, and we did our Witch Please event, which are fairly fresh in our mind. Definitely a highlight was that egg hunt for the Witch Please event, which Creature Feature hosted. And boy, the kids came out in full force whenever we can celebrate Halloween with the kiddos on the lot. Of course, we did our trunk or treat, our costume contest. It was just a blast, an absolute blast. Our final shows of the season, our Universal Monster Mash and our Fright Night celebration with Exhumed Films. Again, two just unbelievably perfect events, Universal Monster Mash has become such a coveted, beloved fan event. And I think we're up to like 8 years now, but every single year it just seems to get so much better. And the return customers on that event. And of course, this year we took a little different approach with Universal Monster Mash. We threw two classics up front and then we did the curveball in the back. So seeing Calling Dr. Death up on that big screen, seeing, of course, Night Monster up on that big screen, like these are the treats and the memories like I'll carry forever. So anything pop for you guys on Universal Monsters?
Just how they always look so good on our screen. And they take up the original footprint of our screen, which was, square 133, 4x3, whatever you want to call it. Not the CinemaScope that it was eventually expanded into in the 50s. It's a wonderful trip back in time. There's just these so well-made, quiet, black and white movies. It's just so unlike everything else that we play that it warms my cold, cold heart to see how many people show up for that show. And as always, since the first year, the age span is like 8 to 80. It's little kids to senior citizens, and everybody just loves these classic monsters that endure.
Yeah. It's fun when you find somebody who's never seen one of these classic films before. One of our lot regulars, and you guys know her, it's Sam. She has Jackie, the little dog.
Oh yeah, that's Sam.
She's great. She's one of the nicest customers we have. She had never seen Bride of Frankenstein. So I was talking to her after like Frankenstein. She's like, yeah, I've never seen Bride. And I'm like, wow, I would love to see, the look on your face. I went back and I had to talk to her afterwards because I wanted to hear her impressions of it, because to me, that's so exciting. The concept of, something is such a fixture or just an icon in my life, having the idea of experiencing it again for the first time. So she loved it. She said, I think it's better than Frankenstein. And I'm like, a lot of people think that. So that's neat too. Just you still get that thrill of somebody watching something for the first time. That's a neat experience.
No, that's super precious. And I mean, I wasn't really watching Bride of Frankenstein this year. Krista projected it, but I was on rewind duty and I could only give it a little bit of my attention. But the idea of experiencing it there the first time and the pressure of projecting it for an audience. I mean, Krista's unflappable, and I actually cried a little bit at the end of that movie. I think that Boris Karloff's performance is really underrated in those movies, and this is the first time he brought me to tears.
That's beautiful. And of course, our final show.
What can we say? William Ragsdale and Stephen Jeffries are maybe some of the most down-to-earth guests that we've had. They loved the projection team, like really loved it. They hung out with you guys pretty much throughout the whole movie. Am I right, Rob?
I think start to finish. I think one of them left to sign some autographs. For the most part, yeah, they were in there the entire time.
Yeah, and they really loved it. Getting to see people meet their heroes, like that never gets old for me. Seeing people bring all the handmade stuff to get signed, that is always just a magical experience. I got to tell William Ragsdale how much Mannequin 2 means to me. So it was a really good treat. He's like, I think we can never talk about that again, but I appreciate you.
Did he give you like a number to call to get some help, or?
Yeah. Yeah, just a really great time. Unfortunately, we did have to cancel our bonfire because of the burn ban, which actually just got lifted. But yeah, it was just an ultimate celebration. We all hung out late into the night and enjoyed each other's company. And
I think that show was made more memorable because we couldn't do the bonfire that we had planned. And we wound up having the Q&A after the film inside the snack bar, like we used to do in the very early years, because
super
we could fit the entire audience inside the snack bar at that time. Basically, everybody crowded into the snack bar. And because it was our last night, as the night was going on, Sandy had broken down all of the merch stuff and we had put a lot of stuff away. So the snack bar was more open than it has been probably in a couple of years. There was a lot of room in there. So everybody crowded in and the guys stood behind their table and they just took questions and told stories. And it was really intimate and cool, much more so than if they had been up front like we normally do it and put it on the screen where everybody's, back at a distance and spread out. It was a really, really nice vibe. I got to drive Stephen Jeffries to the airport the next morning at an hour that neither of us wanted to be up. I think, but he was a super nice guy. We had a great chat along the way. He had a lot of questions about the drive-in and how it worked and all that. I was really fascinated about it all.
Super
And
cool.
and then I got to eat at a diner I'd never been to as the sun came up. So that was fun. Nice way to end the season for me.
Good times. Great times.
I'm going to guess that was the Bethlehem Diner, since you were by the Lehigh Valley Airport, if I recall.
That must have been, yeah. As we were driving, I'm a sucker for neon, and as I was getting to the point where I was going to turn into the airport, I got off the highway. The neon of the diner caught my eye. So after I dropped him off, I was like, "Well, I've got 4 hours in the car or 3 hours in the car, and I should probably eat something. Let me see if the place is open." And they were, and it was great. It was just a very mellow breakfast. As I said, as the sun came up.
Yeah, they have a real good bakery, and they have been a staple of my dining since college.
Nice.
Yeah, they're directly across from the parking lot of the now closed AMC Classic.
Yes, I used to go there all the time, and I always saw that diner and wondered about it. And I think probably solely because the neon was never on during the day, I probably never went in there. So, like a moth to the flame, that's what finally got me in the doors. But I would absolutely go back again.
Yeah, I miss that theater, but I'm still going to go there. Got to make a point to seek out these places, because whether it's a restaurant or a drive-in movie theater, you love it. You got to give them some money if you want them to stay open.
That's right. Patronize them. And you guys have a lot to look forward to, like we talked about with the 2025 season. We've been teasing the road show, of course, which we have a bunch of dates locked in. And honestly, the memories that we make together, guys, like this is what it's all about for me. Like the movies have become somewhat secondary in this experience, just kind of sharing in the love of delivering this experience every single weekend with some of my best friends. So thank you guys so much for all that you have given to the Mahoning this year and beyond.
My pleasure.
All right, then. Sorry, I just saw Blazing Saddles again last night. So.
And we could go on forever.
We could make this an episode that just never ends, because the memories really never end. But this looks like a good place to put a pin in it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As we always say, don't forget about the Mahoning in the off season. Keep your finger on the pulse, whether it's through the podcast, through the Patreon, the social medias, however it is. Just be sure to stay tuned. There's a lot of fun stuff happening. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.